Hello you dirty potters, how are you today? Today we're continuing our video series on Season of the Weeb. And what better way to do that than to teach you guys how to make pokeballs out of clay. Making pokeballs out of clay is an extremely easy task as long as you know how to make an enclosed form. In our last video, we made dragon's eggs out of clay, and those are kind of the same principle. The only difference is you don't really have to smush down the egg form into a ball when you're making that enclosed form. But with pokeballs, you really do. Now before we get this video started, I should let you know that if you're following along at home, you should have already learned how to make an enclosed form. If you don't know how to make an enclosed form, I've already made a video for you on that teaching you how to do it. I will link it down below for you. Do a little bit of this and make some of you nervous. But if you already know how to make an enclosed form, this is gonna be a pretty smooth ride for you. And if you don't know how to make this kind of ball shape like this, and you just know how to make the egg shape, there's a couple of tips and tricks I can teach you guys to really get this pokeball shape here. You see I glazed it in Tenmoku gold and then I put gold luster. I was trying to make a GS ball, okay? If you're anything like the latchkey kid I was when I was a child, you're pretty much left home alone to watch anime and Pokemon all day. And of course, continuing my journey into the art world, one of the very first things that I really wanted to make was like a Charmander or sculpt some kind of Bulbasaur. And of course, as we get on the wheel and everything that we make on the wheel is kind of round-ish or at least goes in a circle, I of course learned how to make a Pokeball. And not only are we gonna be making a Pokeball today, we're gonna be making 3 different types of Pokeballs, because over time you can essentially make them into anything you want. So we're gonna learn how to make a coin jar that you can only bust open by throwing the Pokeball, don't throw it at your cat, a regular Pokeball, and a jar form. With that being said, let's make our enclosed forms. Unlike the egg form that we made in the previous video, we're going for a ball shape instead of an egg shape. But the same rules kind of apply. We want the middle portion to be super big, we want the bottom to be super small, and then we want the top to be super small as well. When you're making your enclosed form, you're almost always going to inevitably end up at this spot. It's very difficult to make a perfect circle, or at least something circular, in an enclosed form when you're on the wheel. Half the time you just kind of end up with this pointy little thing here. Because of this, you have about 2 options to make it look like a ball like this. Number 1, you can get your pin tool and just keep on cutting off the very apex of the clay until it becomes a nice perfect ball form like you want it to be. But you're always gonna have that little hole right there, and you have to keep on closing this up over and over again if you do it that way. Or number 2, what I like to do the most, is to wet the ball, get my metal rib, put it at the very, very top of your enclosed form right here, and push down. This, because of all the air that's trapped in there, will end up just making a ball anyway. Just kind of slowly move up and down the body until it becomes that nice ball form that you want. That's actually not too bad, considering we're gonna trim the bottom and round that out a little bit later on anyway. This pretty much makes a good little circle right here. Let's take this off the wheel and make 1 or 2 more of these. Okay, that's actually not too bad at all. I think three Three big balls. I think 3 pokeballs is good enough for me, so I'm gonna wait for a little while to let these dry, and then we're gonna trim the bottom to make them really, really round. While I am going to trim these, I'm not going to be making a bottom in them like I do with the high majority of my products. The high majority of the stuff that I make, I usually trim an actual foot into, because for me it's just crafting standard. But we do need to get rid of a lot of this excess clay that we have around the bottom here to make this look a little bit more round. We trimmed all of our would-be pokeballs, and there's one little Potter tip I gotta give you before we move any further. Now I do realize that I just trimmed all of these balls with a chuck, but I also realize that not everyone knows how to make a chuck or has a chuck at home. Firstly, I've already made a video on how to make and use one of these that I will post down below for you if you want one of these. These are an excellent tool that you can easily make yourself with a little bit of clay and learning how to actually throw yourself kind of a U-shaped pattern. It's very, very easy. But there is going to be a portion of this video where instead of trimming our ball right side up like this and just trimming the bottom of it, we're gonna have to put the ball like this, kind of sideways in here. And this is what helps me make that little circle in the middle of the Pokeball, just like that. So if you either don't have a chuck at home, don't know how to make one, or don't know how to use one, you have a couple of options. The easiest way I can show you to get around this, my preferred method, is to just kind of hold the Pokeball sideways and just batten it down with big old pieces of clay like this. And this will usually hold it into place as long as you put it on at least 2 or 3 corners. I like to use 4, I like to use front, back, side to side, but that's just me. You can very easily bypass using a chuck if you just do this right here. Make sure it's really attached. And now, whenever you spin your wheel, as long as it's really in there, you won't really have to worry about it. Okay, I know this is a little bit off center, but I was just trying to show you how to make a temporary chuck. We're not going all out, calm down. There's really just 2 main features after you actually make the ball to your Pokeball that you really have to worry about. Number 1, as you can see here, the line down the middle. We still have to trim or carve that in. And number 2, all you really gotta do is tilt it this way and make a circle in the ball. It's kinda like a circle within a circle. Luckily for you, you don't really need a chuck to do that first part, that big stretchy line around the ball to make the actual opening of the ball. All you really need is your wheel. Now all you have to do is take your trim tool and make a line straight through the middle of this ball. Be careful not to go too deep. Sometimes I end up cutting through this. Okay, that actually wasn't too bad. We did the first part, we made a line all the way through the ball. Now all we have to do is turn this over and make a circle directly in the middle of this line. I mean, when you think about it, this is kind of all a Pokeball is. It's just a big line going all the way around a circle, and then a circle inside of that circle. And there you go, you got a Pokeball. As I said before, I enjoy using a chuck, but you don't have to use a chuck at home. As I showed you before, you can very easily get a little bit of clay, and as long as you make sure it's centered and you have it nice and held down by these little pieces of clay, you can put it like this, because for this next step, I will be putting the Pokeball sideways into a chuck. But if you don't have a chuck, it's okay. You can just do this. Potter tip. As I said, for this section, we're going to be tipping the Pokeball on its side and making a circle within that circle. But a trick that I learned over time of messing up way too much is right before you do it, go ahead and get a pencil or a pen or even your pen tool and kind of circumscribe where you're about to trim. If you mess up, you can't go back. This is kind of your only chance to make this circle directly in the middle of this line right here. So if you don't know exactly where you're going to put it, you should probably mark that down beforehand. I usually just use the end of my pen tool, not the pointy part, the other side, because the pointy part's clearly going to cut into the clay and I have to clean that up later. So I would suggest that you use a pen or a pencil or something that's going to come off during firing. For me, I usually just like to trace it with the other side of my pen tool, and I kind of follow the ghost trail of that. Yep, that looks pretty good. So now I'm going to batten this down real quick and just trim exactly where I made that ghost mark with the end of my pen tool. Now I'm just going to trim the inside here to get rid of this little indent. Now we just have to make another circle inside of this circle. And there you go, you've made your very first Pokeball. Now all you gotta do is stick it inside the kiln and paint it any way you want. Here's the thing, I know we all think about Pokeballs as making them red and white, right? With this kind of centerpiece, but you can very easily make the top floating blue, the bottom Tenmuku gold. You can make these any color you want in the Glaze world. Let's do the other two real quick because there's one really cool trick that I wanna show you guys. Build work that nobody loves, I choose you! It's Pikachu! Alright, we're almost done. We got two well-formed Pokeballs here. I don't know what happened to the last one. Why do you ask so many questions? Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Misty. You'll get your bike back when I say you'll get your bike back, alright? Just keep following me till then. Before we go any further, there's one little trick that I really like doing with these Pokeballs that I want to show you. Sooner or later, I'll do a whole episode on it, don't worry. But for now, I want to combine the technique that I would show you in the future, I guess. When I first started making these, I had a couple of options. You can either leave them as a decorational piece on your table or as a paperweight or whatever you want. You can cut a line through these and make a jar out of them, but they honestly don't look too good that way because the circle right here separates directly down the middle, and that kind of bugs me. Or what you can do is make an unopenable piggy bank. Take a little carving tool or a little potter's knife and just cut a slit right at the very top right here. Check this out, you pretty much just made yourself a piggy bank that you have to throw like a Pokeball in order to open. Make sure not to make the slit too big, although technically speaking this will shrink, making the slit smaller. But any coins that I put in here from now on, as long as I don't make a hole at the bottom, must stay inside the Pokeball unless I'm willing to break the ball itself. I know they already make these out there, but I highly doubt they make them in Pokeball form. This is actually a really good idea as a gift to somebody who's trying to save money. Put dollars in here, put quarters in here, put whatever you want. And heck, I have one of these inside of my room. But guess what? I like the way the Pokeball looks on my counter as an aesthetic piece. So I haven't thrown it and opened it yet. There's probably all the arcade tokens in there. This idea literally just came to me because I was really tired of making Pokeball jars, and you guys are probably going to keep money in your jars anyway, so I just kind of cut out the extra steps and made a little slit, and now you have a forever bank. Forever until the next Pokemon Go update comes out and I break this puppy open to buy some more coins. Now we just have to wait for these to dry so we can put them inside the bisque kiln.
Moments later. More moments later.
Alright, now that we got them out of the bisque, all we have to do now is glaze them. That actually wasn't too bad. I do have a little bit of space to clean up with a sponge, but that can very easily be taken off. See? Oh, no, I just made a bigger mess. I don't usually brush glaze. I don't think you guys have ever seen me really brush glaze on this channel, but I went out and bought a glaze instead of developing a whole new red glaze of my own. I got the Dunkin' version of really red, if you guys honestly want to know, from the concept line. I've used this glaze before and it comes out really red as it states. It's called really red. I was planning on actually glazing the bottom, but I don't think I need to glaze the bottom. The bottom of a Pokeball is already white as it is, and if I dip glaze this, the bottom half of this circle right here, the part that usually opens up to capture the Pokemon, is gonna like get over glazed, and I kind of don't want that. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna leave it like this, and I'm gonna leave this portion raw. I might clear coat it later, but as of now, I see no real reason to glaze something white that is already white. So we're gonna fire this, and just for fun, we're gonna make the other Pokeball a different color, because I feel like this is kind of like, yeah, you made it the color of a Pokeball, but we all know what that color is. But let's see what we can get out of this one right here, the one that's a bank. Little piggy bank surprise. Oh, I'm not even gonna tell you what I glazed this. I glazed this one all kinds of crazy colors. You can tell how even the pattern is. And because I am a kind and generous weeaboo, I will let you guys know that I'm gonna glaze this thing entirely in Jeff Campana's gray, if you're familiar with some of my work and some of my glazes. But you guys are gonna have to guess in the comments below which one this is. It's a top secret glaze. I'll give you guys 20 extra Potter points to Gryffindor if you can guess which glaze this actually is before this video is over. This one looks so good, while this one over here looks, I can't even touch it. It's so gross, I'm gonna have to pan over. This one looks so good, while this one looks so overglazed and gross. But I'll tell you what, a lot of potters are watching this right now going, that's probably gonna turn out a lot better than that one, because that one's just gonna look like a pokeball, but that one's gonna be all kinds of interesting colors. So we're gonna wait for this gookiness to dry, and we're gonna put it in the kiln, and we're gonna see how these two come out later on. And cut screen. Okay, check it out, right? The Pokeball came out amazing. Came out fantastic, actually. I'm not gonna lie to you, I did this really, really quickly. I just kind of like poured on, you saw. Well, there you go. That is how you make a, what? You wanna see the other Pokeball? No, we don't need to talk about that one. You don't need to see it, just like you don't need a pony. I know you want one, but Daddy's not gonna get it for you. Fine. You remember that one time I was like, we're just gonna glaze it all kinds of crazy colors, and we're gonna see how it turned out awful. The middle of the Pokeball wasn't colored in right. The top of it got a bunch of crawling. This came out awful. You remember that one time, like maybe 5 minutes ago, when I was like, oh man, I bet we're gonna glaze this all kinds of crazy colors and it's gonna come out better than this. No, it came out awful. But that's also a lie, because I actually made a bunch of other ones and a bunch of other different clay and glaze combinations. And I even made this one, which is the one that I hold my Snorlax in. Well, thank you, Dirty Potters, for joining me today. I just wanted to have some fun with you guys. I've been doing these for quite some time by myself, but it's not like there's a market for them, and it's not like I can sell them on the market, seeing as they are Niantic or Pokemon property. I can't just pump these out and sell them all day, but I probably will give these out to a couple patrons, or maybe when I open my website up, I'll just give these out as free gifts to people who kind of buy stuff in the first place. If you want to see any of my artwork, the links are always down below for your beautiful Potter eyes to see, and I will see you, Dirty Potters, next week. Okay, before we go, I just need to set the record straight, okay? It's Pokemon. Pokemon is short for pocket monsters. The Poke is for pocket, the Mon is for monsters. It is not Pokemans, Mom.